Welcome on in, everybody, to another one of my fantasy football rankings videos. Today we're going to be doing the top 30 running backs that I have ranked for fantasy football. Very excited to get into this video. I've been working on this list for a minute now, and as I said, very excited to get right into it with you guys. Check out a couple of the players that are on my board. And here are a couple of the honorable mentions down at the bottom of the board. Tyrone Tracy had such a great season last year, but I do think that with Cam Scatabo and that offense getting some split reps, he might not perform as well, but at the same time, he had a very nice rookie season. Ramondre Stevenson with Travion Henderson added to the offense. I would not really look to draft him, but he's down here as a mention. Javonte Williams starting for the Cowboys is very interesting, and I would take a shot on him in the late round if he is sitting there. But at the same time, I don't think he is a top 30 running back for fantasy football. And then Jaylen Warren, you get to him. He's a very fun player. I think he could have a Tony Pollard-esque season where he is starting, but at the same time, him and Caleb Johnson in that backfield splitting some reps. I think Caleb Johnson emerges as the starter. But Jaylen Warren, not a bad player to take a flyer on. Had some really good games last year, even playing the backup with Najee Harris starting. And then Travis Etienne, who knows? He could have a bounce-back season like he did 2 years ago, have that amazing RB3 type season, or he could look absolutely horrible and Tank Bigsby could really take his job. We will have to see for a player like Travis Etienne, just how he ends up handling that workload, and if he ends up splitting more of the carries with Tank Bigsby, but not a bad player to take a flyer on if he does fall a little bit later. Would not draft him based off his ADP at this point, though. Omarion Hampton, one of my favorite rookies in the draft, thought the Broncos were going to take him, and instead he ends up going to the Los Angeles Chargers. See, I would draft him, but him and Najee Harris splitting that backfield, he would be a lot better for, say, a Dynasty League, but at the same time, love Omarion Hampton. He could break out and emerge as the starter by the end of the season, but I like Najee Harris a little bit better just for this year, as he is a veteran. And then we get to number 30 on my list, and that is Isaiah Pacheco. A player who, struggled last year due to that injury from the year prior. Played a couple games, then he was out for a while. Never mind, he didn't have an injury the year prior. He broke his fibula during the season. And after that, he just did not come back and play the same. But I do think a whole year, basically, from that injury at this point, he's got to be the lead back for Kansas City, and I really hope he bounces back because I just think he's also a great person as a whole, and I think he does have a somewhat decent season. A little bit of a risky choice when you're looking for players to draft in fantasy, but at the same time, Isaiah Pacheco, years prior, very consistent. It's been a top 15 or so fantasy running back, so I like him a lot. Then we get to DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift, he's nothing crazy. He had a couple of nice games throughout the 2024 season, but at the same time, when you're drafting him, you kind of know what to expect with DeAndre Swift. At the same time, I do have him ranked in my top 30 because there's nobody really going to take his job. I mean, Kyle Monangai is one of the best options, or Roschon Johnson, and both of those guys I see as RB2, RB3 types, so DeAndre Swift, most likely going to be the lead back no matter what. He's a decent pass catcher. He is also he's an alright rusher. But at the same time, I would take him. Based off his ADP, he is falling pretty deep in the draft, so who knows? Maybe taking a flyer on him, he might pan out, maybe not. Here's David Montgomery, who also used to play for the Chicago Bears. This year, I'm not really feeling David Montgomery as much as before. He is my 28th ranked running back for a reason. He obviously last year had a very nice season, ended the year though with that injury, and I don't know, me personally, I'm worried because Jahmyr Gibbs emerged as that RB1 last year. Does David Montgomery still last in this offense? Do they continue to use him? They lost both offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, so without Ben Johnson in the room, are they able to make the same magic happen with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs? I don't know, so I have him a bit low. I wouldn't personally take David Montgomery this year, but I definitely like him at the same time, so he is in the top 30. As we get to number 27, as we were talking about Jaylen Warren earlier, Caleb Johnson, a very, very fun rookie, and I think he is going to emerge as the starter in Pittsburgh. Number 27 ranked because, he has to share that backfield with Jaylen Warren. We don't really know how that's going to pan out, but, he was picked in the third round of the draft for a reason. He has a lot of useful skill sets that could make him emerge. But at the same time, he's in Pittsburgh's offense where they have Aaron Rodgers starting. It's kind of an older offense. Who knows how much of a workload he ends up receiving. So that is why he's down a little bit at number 27. Number 26, we have R.J. Harvey, who was up in my top 15 rankings for the running backs, a couple months ago, start of the year. But with J.K. Dobbins in that room, I do like J.K. Dobbins a whole lot more for starting value. He's obviously going to split reps. They didn't pick him in the second round for nothing. He's also a very fun running back playing for UCF. He was fun to watch, and I just think overall in this Denver offense, he is going to impress. And, say when Dobbins is gone in a year or two, R.J. Harvey, de facto starter. I would take him, pick him up for a dynasty league, but right now, with his size and age concerns as well, I would personally pick J.K. Dobbins to start the year off, and who knows, R.J. Harvey could emerge as the starter. Dobbins has struggled with injury issues, so maybe you take a flyer on R.J. Harvey, my number 27, 26 ranked guy. I'm going to end up forgetting that. Brian Robinson. Nobody is drafting Brian Robinson. This dude is still such a stud. I know he got injured throughout the season, but look at his early stats. Even then, he had, 3 crappy games? Why is nobody drafting Brian Robinson? He is an absolute beast, and I think another year in that Washington offense that has since improved so much from 2023 to 2024. Brian Robinson is a beast. Nobody's going to take that job from him. Not Austin Eckler, not anybody else on the team. So, not Chris Rodriguez. This is Brian Robinson's backfield, and I would rank him even higher, honestly, without those injury concerns as well. And then at the same time, they like to split the carries with Eckler and have Eckler catch some passes, so that does play a factor. As we get to my guy I was talking about, J.K. Dobbins. Last year, he had an absolute comeback season. Should have won Comeback Player of the Year, honestly, playing in that Chargers offense. Popped off. Then he got injured late in the season. But at the same time, his early games, 23, 22. A couple of alright games here, but at the same time, not really a bad game in there. There's some 8 and 9 pointers, but at the same time, he's scoring double digits most weeks. So he now gets to be the starter in Denver in a much improved Denver defense and offense at this point through the draft and free agency. I like J.K. Dobbins a whole lot this year. I would draft him a little bit higher than his ADP is saying right now, and I would, not a starter on your team, but definitely worthy of a bench spot. Quinshon Judkins. Now we're starting to get into the top 25 rankings or so of these running backs that I have. Judkins, obviously, from all of my draft analysis, an awesome player. Played at Ole Miss, transferred to Ohio State, where he played with his teammate Travion Henderson. There is some questions, with Jerome Ford in that backfield and such, but I think by the end of the season, you see Judkins as the starter. He's one of the best players on this Cleveland offense, and I really do like him a lot, so I would draft him. Definitely a dynasty player I would look out for, and at the same time, in general, Quinshon Judkins going to end up becoming that starter eventually, so I would take him, throw a flyer out on him, let him ride the bench for maybe a couple weeks, just see what he ends up putting up for you. Breece Hall, a lot of question marks with Breece Hall. Last year I had him ranked in my top 10, top 5 running backs. He just struggled, and he was a little bit inconsistent throughout the year. He had his games throughout here, but then a couple looks like injury against Miami, then some 6.3. I don't know, and apparently there's talks within the Jets organization that he's possibly a trade candidate. So with a player like that, you have to be very careful. But Breece Hall at the same time, he could end up returning to that elite production that he had during his first 2 seasons, where he was 8th in points per game and 6th in points per game in 2023. But 17th in points per game in 2024. So he's definitely going to, work on a couple of things and come back, and we'll see. He may end up being on a different team when we talk about him next year. But at the same time, he's still got that it factor, so I like Breece Hall. But I like this guy ahead of him a little bit more. Najee Harris just had his best season in Pittsburgh. I know he had some shitters to end the year, but look at the stats that he was able to put up. 13, 10, 9, 21, 17, 17. He had some very nice games, and I know because I drafted him, and I had him on my team. And I did end up trading him away, but at the same time got some good value back for him. Najee Harris, now in a new Chargers offense, playing with Harbaugh. I know there was that eye injury that he just sustained. I don't really think that's going to be something crazy with the fireworks mishap. I I like Najee Harris, and based off his ADP right now, he is going very late in drafts. This is a guy that I'm thinking about as a, a little bit of a sleeper type of pick, him and Brian Robinson. I like these two guys a lot. A lot of people might not be high on them, but at the same time, I know they don't use running backs as much, but J.K. Dobbins just came in and had an absolutely amazing season, and I don't think he is even, a third. No, not a third. I think he's like a quarter of the player that Najee Harris is. Najee Harris is a lot more talent, or maybe not more talented, but, has a better history, a more full career in comparison to J.K. Dobbins. I mean, if Dobbins played in every season, who knows? He could definitely be the more talented running back. But I do like Najee Harris better, and seeing him in that offense, I know he's going to split the carries with Hampton. I still like him a whole lot, and I would take him a little bit earlier than he's going in most mock drafts. As we get to Kenny Walker, Kenny had such a good early portion of the year, struggled with injuries all throughout, and I really liked him originally, but now he's just sunk down my rankings. I don't like Kenny Walker as much, although I would still draft him if he ends up being there as a late round pick. But for me personally, not a guy I would target as much. I like him a little bit more than Harris. Tony Pollard. Pollard is just pretty much the same thing every year. If you're looking for a guy that's going to be somewhat decently consistent, but then have a couple of stray games every year, and Tennessee's offense just got improved as well. So I like Tony Pollard. I mean, based off his value, I would pick him up, and I think he did have a couple of really nice breakout games last year. And like I said, who knows, with Cam Ward being the quarterback, maybe the Titans have a Washington Commanders type season, but that is all what we'll have to see. Outside of that, Tennessee is usually not a very good offense, so that is why he's ranked a little bit lower. Then we get to TreVeyon Henderson, the guy who's going to end up taking Ramondre Stevenson's job in that New England backfield. You don't draft a running back in the second round for nothing. I love Quinshon Judkins, but I just think TreVeyon Henderson, based on the scheme fit, based on everything, he is going to absolutely dominate. They're already talking about him in both the passing and rushing game. They want to get him involved a whole lot. And, when Mike Vrabel was in Tennessee, they had Derrick Henry. He now has TreVeyon Henderson, who is not a similar player, not on the same level, but he could coach him up. And I would really like to see how he ends up playing next year, or this season, in that New England offense. Aaron Jones, another player that a lot of people are sleeping on with Brian Robinson and, Najee Harris and such. He had a very good season last year. A 6-pointer, a 5-pointer, but outside of that, most games were double-digit points. I know you bring in Jordan Mason, and people question that with the backfield, but I really like Aaron Jones, and I think he is going to have, once again, another really nice season. When he was playing with the Packers, he didn't play all that well for fantasy purposes, but went to Minnesota, and Minnesota just had a great year in total. So I would definitely think about drafting Aaron Jones, despite the backfield questions. He's a very talented running back, although age is definitely a concern at this point with him. I still like him a lot. Then we get to James Cook, who had a great year last year. Only reason he's pushed down my rankings a good bit is because, the contract talks and such. I don't really know. He could be a tag and trade candidate or a trade guy. But outside of that, he had a really great season above Aaron Jones, I would say, definitely. And I like him. He's starting to get into my top 10 kind of running back range. And James Cook, receiving game, rushing game, he's a beast. Joe Mixon pushed down my rankings a good bit out of age, and the way he ended the season was just absolutely poor. 3, 5, 8 in there. But outside of that, he had 20 points. This game he was injured in, and then a couple of weeks he was out. 20, 17, 37 points. Joe Mixon had an absolute amazing season for the Texans. I think with the questions of Nick Chubb and Woody Marks, who is a fun rookie, in that backfield are very, they're very relevant. But at the same time, Mixon, if he can even replicate half of what he did last season, he's going to be a nice player to draft. And I like him for that. Jonathan Taylor pops off to end the year. 26, 28, 47 points. And then throughout the year, he was decently consistent. Had a 3-pointer stinker in there. But at the same time, he was injured as well. But outside of that, he had a very nice season. And I think in an improved Indianapolis offense, I don't really know improved, but they like to get their running back involved. They like to get Jonathan Taylor involved a lot. So I would draft him off that. Just pushed him down the rankings because he's a bit more of a mid-range RB1. and I would draft guys like Alvin Kamara and McCaffrey over a player like him, just based off the ADP as well. Derek Carr retires. The Saints' offense is absolutely horrible, but the one player that will be very fun to draft every single season unless age regression finally hits him is Alvin Kamara. Look at the points. I mean, you don't even have to really talk about it. 22, 48, 15. He's a stud. Year in, year out. Like I said, only questions are age, regression, and being on literally the worst offense in the entire league. Outside of that, I mean, they've been the worst offense in the entire league, and he's still performed every season. So, I think whether you have Tyler Shook, Spencer Rattler, or Jake Haener at quarterback, Alvin Kamara is going to perform. And this is his 9th NFL season. Some injuries last year, that's what kind of pushes him down. If not, he would be more talked about in the top 7, top 8 running back range. But then we get to McCaffrey. And the biggest question on McCaffrey is all these empty slots that you see right here. Injury. Will Christian McCaffrey be able to come back and be the player that he was? His leg is literally like dying. His legs are literally dying. He's got Achilles tendonitis or something like that. I don't really know. I personally am not targeting him, but with a player like Christian McCaffrey, you can't count him out easily. So I still have him in my top 8 or 9, top 10 running back range, I want to say. He's still been such a great player in most years of his career. Had that Madden curse last year and had just an awful season where he came back and then re-aggravated his injury. But at the same time, he's still Christian McCaffrey, and this ranking could look really poor when the season starts and he struggles. But if not, I would really take his backup, Isaac Guerrero. I think any running back that you put in San Francisco's offense, as long as they're healthy, they play great. Then we get to Kyren Williams, who had a very nice season last year. I thought about even bumping him up the rankings some more. Definitely like him a lot, and probably will think about bumping him up. 8-pointer in here, 16, 20. His main problem last year was the fumbles. I don't even think I can see them on here. But yeah, his fumbling issues were something that were very extreme last year, but at the same time, he is a young player still learning the position. Not learning the position, but, learning how to not fumble football, you want to say. I love Kyren Williams. I'm definitely going to think about moving him up the rankings. Just kind of I'm a little bit more low on him based off the issues with the fumbling and how much he's going to get in that Rams offense with Devontae Adams and Puka now. They're going to use that receiving game a whole lot. He might get flexed out of it a little bit. James Conner. This dude must have drank from the fountain of youth. He is... How old is he now? He is quite the old running back. Played for Pittsburgh for a couple years, and then since he's played for Arizona, he's been awesome. Now, at the same time, I don't know, him and Kyren kind of similar tier for me, but James Conner, every single year he's doing something nice. I like Trey Benson a little bit more. I wouldn't personally gun for James Conner. Trey Benson as that backup, kind of little flex pickup, little guy to sit on your bench in case James Conner doesn't perform as well as he has in previous years. That's always an option, but at the same time, him, Kamara, they just proved that they straight up drank from the fountain of youth. They've been awesome, despite their age. Jacobs showed last year in the Packers offense that he still has got it. Man, I know to end the year, 11 and 10-pointer in the fantasy playoffs kind of sucks. But outside of that, 20-point games all throughout here. It was quite the year for running backs last year, I gotta say. A lot of these guys have really great seasons. You'd love to see it. Josh Jacobs, improved Packers offense. Jordan Love, he has hopefully the ability to take this team far, and that is going to be what's important. The most important thing to Jacobs' success is the Packers making the playoffs and the Packers being a contending team. If they are not, I could see Jacobs being a much worse player than this, but outside of that, he's a stud. Derrick Henry. There's not really much that I have to say with Derrick Henry when you look at his stats. I drafted him in addition to Barkley last year. Had a really nice season, is all I'm going to say. The RB1 and the RB2. 10, 16, 31, 39, 16, 26, 26. And a couple of stinkers throughout here. But then the end of the season, 32, 25, 21. And I know at this point, it's the end of the season, but still. Worst game in his entire season was the 6-pointer, which he dropped, I want to say maybe, first week of the fantasy playoffs, which kind of sucked for a lot of us Derrick Henry owners. But at the same time, if he comes back, just like I said with Mixon, plays even a quarter as good as he did, he is worth it based off his ADP at this point. And I would draft Derrick Henry again if he ends up sitting there, say, 4th or 5th round. Chuba Hubbard emerged as an absolute monster last year. 11, 28, 23. And I like him a little bit better just because I'm betting on potential for a player like Chuba Hubbard. And I think in an improved Carolina offense with better weapons around Bryce Young, I think Chuba is going to have an absolutely amazing season. You lose out, Jonathan Brooks is out. You now have Rico Dowdle in that backfield to take a little bit of the weight off Chuba. Chuba, you know, I think he's just going to pop off. And that is my opinion. That's why I have him ranked so high. Great pass catcher, great rusher of the football. I think he's only going to get better from here, and he proved it with that breakout season last year. Chase Brown. I love Chase Brown. That's why I have him ranked so high. You could say I have a couple of these other guys ranked a little low. Derrick Henry, got to watch out for regression. Jacobs, it really depends on the Packers' offense. Kyron Williams, like I said, receiving game. So that's why I have a couple of guys a little higher. I'm betting on them to finish out the season better than other running backs. Chase Brown to start the season, split those carries with Zach Moss. Then later on improved. He is an absolute must-draft running back for me in 2025. Love Chase Brown. In a Cincinnati offense that needs to make the playoffs this year, they need to do something or else some people are going to get fired. Chase Brown is going to have an even better season than last year, is what I'm predicting. An absolute beast. He's got that athleticism in him. A whole lot of his family members have played major sports. Gotta love Chase Brown. He's a beast, and there's not much more to say about him. But he played 88% of the Bengals snaps, and I think that snap count is either going to go up or somewhat stay the same. So, draft Chase Brown is what I'm saying. My king, my glorious, glorious king, Bucky Irving. And if I didn't have such early picks in the first round, I would be drafting him. That Buccaneers offense is absolutely insane. You got him, you got his boy Rachaad White behind him, who's a pass catcher, and then can also run the football, prove that he can run it somewhat decently last year. But I just love Bucky Irving. To start the year off, he wasn't the de facto starter, then proved it on later. He was a very fun player at Oregon, and Bucky Irving, a player that in the late first round, early second round, I would have no problem drafting because I would love to have him on my football team, or fantasy football team. Then we get to the Rook, Ashton Jeanty. He's up there in that Bijan Robinson rookie tier, where he's going to come in and instantly start for the Raiders, and he's going to be very fun. My pro comparison to him was Marshawn Lynch. If he's even, an eighth of the player Marshawn Lynch was, he is going to be awesome to watch. He just literally played like a wrecking ball at Boise State. And if you're drafting in the mid-round, drafting in the late round, there's not a lot of upside with Ashton Jeanty because you expect him to have an amazing season. So it's a little bit more risky to draft him. But at the same time, if you're looking for an elite player, it's not risky. But at the same time, you kind of know what type of season he's going to have. I feel like a Bijan Robinson rookie season is expected from him, a Jahmyr Gibbs type rookie season. So, yeah, Ashton Jeanty, absolute beast, bowling ball of a player, and he is going to be awesome for the Raiders offense. Him and Brock Bowers going to be some new weapons on that team, and they got some guys for Geno to throw the ball to, pass the ball off to. As we're starting to get into my top 4 running backs range with Devon Achane. Devon Achane, absolutely amazing season last year as the full-time starter. They have Raheem Mostert getting some touches in there, but look, 23, 29, had a couple of crappy games in there, but I think based off his overall points scored last year, he is a player that you want to target with the 6th, 7th, 8th pick in your draft. I would totally take Devon Achane. Luckily, I have the 2nd overall pick in the league, but in my other league, I have, 5th or 6th overall pick, I want to say. I would take Devon Achane with that unless a really good player like Jahmyr Gibbs was down, falling a little bit. Achane, an amazing pass catcher, not as good of a rusher of the football with his smaller frame, smaller size, but, he had 200-plus carries, 75-plus receptions last year, scored at least 11 touchdowns in both of his seasons, and he has outpaced all running backs in routes, catches, yards, and receiving touchdowns. And yes, I did pull that right from ESPN, but also the reason why he is not maybe in the top 2, top 3 range for me is it really depends on how that Dolphins offense looks. In the games where they struggled, he struggled as well, earlier in the year. So that really is an important factor. But I think even if they suck, Devon Achane will be one of the best players on the team. My GOAT, favorite player, maybe of all time, Saquon Barkley, played for my Penn State Nittany Lions, as you guys know, my favorite team. Then gets drafted to New York, bitter rivals of the Philadelphia Eagles, goes to Philadelphia and has an Offensive Player of the Year season. Absolutely amazing. Playing for his home state. And, I mean, you don't, just like Derrick Henry, you don't have to say much. He was a little inconsistent, but 34, 17. What, how many? Look, a 50-point game against the Los Angeles Rams. 30 point. I am an idiot, and I traded him away for absolute chips in my one league because I really needed wide receivers bad. Don't ever trade Saquon Barkley away if you have him. Even if he's sucking for a couple weeks, he is going to come back and be a monster. Take Ashton Jeanty over Saquon Barkley in a dynasty league? Yes. In a regular league? No. Are you trying to win now or trying to win later? You're trying to win right now. Saquon Barkley is that guy, and if he falls to you and you're like upset, you're like, oh damn, I didn't get Bijan or Jameer. Saquon is the best consolation prize that you could possibly get. He is a stud in the receiving game, in the rushing game, everything. This dude could probably even pass the ball if he wanted to. He is a monster. Saquon Barkley. I don't have much else to say. Jahmyr Gibbs finished his RB1 last season. He has an amazing ceiling still as a very young running back. And, I mean, I traded up because I wanted Bijan Robinson really bad. Love Bijan. He's an absolute stud. But Jahmyr is also a great player as well. Finished his RB1 last year, that 47-point game to end the year. And then he had some really awesome games throughout. 34-pointer in here, 28, 27. A lot of 20-point games in there. Jahmyr Gibbs, absolute beast. And if I had ended up having to draft him this year, I would have been pretty happy with that as well. But my name up here is Bijan and the boys, because I've never drafted Bijan despite my chances to draft him. You know, 3 years ago, I want to say, no, 2 years ago, drafted Tyreek Hill over him. Tyreek Hill did finish as wide receiver 1. Last year, I drafted A.J. Brown in the first round of this league. Didn't have the chance to draft Bijan. I now had the chance. I said, I want him. I want Bijan Robinson. And getting to him after Gibbs. Anyways, yeah. Jahmyr Gibbs, beast. I would just watch out because he is with David Montgomery, so they might split some of those carries. But at the same time, he's a monster. Either way, number 0. He's got some aura. Bijan Robinson finally made that leap last year, and he was an absolute stud. And the reason I have him over Gibbs is another reason based off of potential. Bijan Robinson going to have the potential to have one of the greatest running back seasons of all time next year, depending on how that Falcons offense looks. I see a Saquon Barkley type year out of him with more consistency because he is a similar type running back. But it really depends. If the Falcons are making a playoff run, then Bijan's going to be even better. If the Falcons fall short and have another 8-9, 9-8 type season again, I don't see Bijan performing as well. But I have some faith in that Falcons offense. Drake London, Robinson in that backfield, and Michael Penix now throwing the ball instead of Kirk Cousins. And I like the upside on Michael Penix, which is another reason why I have Bijan Robinson so high. But yeah, guys, that is going to be the end of this one. Tell me if you agree with these rankings down below, like a couple of the rookies this year. But at the end of the day, like I said, Bijan Robinson is my RB1 for this season. I would take a whole lot of these guys in the first round. Probably all these guys right here, first round. These are some more second round type players, second round caliber guys. This gets down to like the third round here. But man, like I said, Bijan Robinson, a beast. And I will be drafting him this year with my second overall pick. But yeah, that's going to be the end of this video. Ranking all the running backs. My rankings are obviously possible to change before the season starts in a month from now. But yeah, fantasy football getting closer than ever. My drafts are coming up. Do you guys have drafts coming up as well? Let me know in the comments down below. And like I said, let me know if you agree with these rankings or don't. I would love to have a discussion. And that's going to be all from me.